countdown. But we're live now. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So excited to have you here. Whether you are listening to the podcast, the audio, whether you're watching the video, watching live, really, really thrilled to have you here with us today. Like everyone else in the world, I'm having tech problems. I somehow feel that the Microsoft update, CrowdStrike, whatever it is, as my entire desktop completely collapsed and is not working. So if you're having tech problems, I feel you. If you're having flight problems, oh my gosh, all my friends that are trying to fly anywhere in the US right now, internationally, they've been having huge problems. But I'm just so happy to have you here watching live. And I'm Julia Campbell. If you don't know who I am, welcome to my LinkedIn page, my LinkedIn Live. And I will be speaking at the Bridge conference, the Bridge Integrated Marketing and Fundraising Conference next week with my brand new friend and colleague, Stephen Knight. And Stephen's here today. We're going to talk about our session. We're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about what's working, what he is seeing at his nonprofit as a director of communications, and just kind of what's going on and what do we need to know. So first off, our session, if you are going to the Bridge conference, our session's on Thursday, August 1st, and it's at 8:45 a.m., bright and early. And the topic is how to convert fans to donors, a fundraiser's guide to social media. And it's something that I'm pretty passionate about and something that I really like teaching nonprofits about. And I'm so excited to be partnering with Stephen on this particular session. But Stephen, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and Just Leadership USA and talk a little bit about what you do and your organization.
Thanks, Julia.
Looks like you're not having any tech problems, hopefully.
I'm just over here using the Mac.
I'm just gonna
say that.
Yeah. That's what everyone, all my Mac friends say to me.
Yeah. All the Mac folks in the comments. You can
like, we're not having any problems. Like, what's going on? What are you PC people doing?
Well, I am so excited, Julia. Yes, to be your new friend, to be collaborating on this session next week at the Bridge Conference. I am Director of Communications for an organization called Just Leadership USA. We're one of the nation's only tax-exempt justice organizations that is both founded by and led by formerly incarcerated people. And we're actually celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. So 10 years of educating, elevating, and empowering directly impacted people and helping them get the help they need to get to the next level in their leadership. JLUSA was one of the lead organizations in the Close Rikers campaign to shut down the infamous Rikers Island jail in New York. And we're most well known for a couple of leadership programs. One is called Emerging Leaders. It's a weekend-long training that we do all over the country. And then we have a year-long cohort called Leading with Conviction that meets virtually, but also in person. So I came to JLUSA after spending 5 years doing communications and special projects with Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II. And his organization, Repairs the Breach, which is one of the lead partner organizations in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Dr. Barber is recognized as one of the nation's leading civil rights activists. Dr. Cornel West called him the closest person we have to Martin Luther King Jr. in our midst. So it was really an honor to work with him and be part of his team. And that's working with him is where I got really invested in this work of amplifying the voices of directly impacted people, which is what I get to do every day with JLUSA. But my experience with nonprofit communications goes all the way back to the late 1990s. So I've been doing this in one form or another, basically my entire adult career. So.
Oh, wow. I love that. So that's really interesting because I want to talk today, not just about, our session. I want to actually give people the event information if they're interested. Bridge is in Washington, D.C. And, our session is going to be on August 1st. But there's so much going on in the social media landscape right now, especially with I don't know, there might have been some headlines in the past couple of weeks, but I want you to talk more about how Just Leadership USA uses social media really to either do fundraising, marketing, advocacy. What's sort of your strategy? If you could give us like a big, broad kind of overview of it.
Yeah. I mean, we're primarily an advocacy organization, 501c3. We're on most of the major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, Twitter, X, LinkedIn, and now TikTok. And we primarily use social media to amplify the voices of our leaders. We have an amazing network of 1,600 plus leaders in 45 states, plus Washington, D.C., who are doing amazing justice work on the ground. And they have amazing stories and always, updates on the work that they're doing. So primarily, we use our blog and our website and then social media to amplify those stories and those voices. But we also use it to share news and resources of interest to our audience because, we're trying to build a reputation as being a source for good information. So, trying to balance out, it's not all quote unquote promotional content. It's just other interesting and useful information as well. And then, of course, we use it for fundraising and building our base of support as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important. What you just said about reputation. I talk a lot about how nonprofits can and should be leveraging social media to become that go-to resource, to become that thought leader, to become that knowledge center, because that's really what people are looking for, I think, on social media. They're looking for those stories and they're looking for connection, but they're also really looking for that trusted information, especially right now. Like, what can we trust? What can we rely on? Who are the real people in the trenches doing the work that have kind of their finger on the pulse of the cause that we care about? So I've been reading a lot about Meta's policy. Meta, Facebook and Instagram they own Facebook and Instagram. There's been a lot being posted because I actually follow a lot of journalists and a lot of nonprofits and advocacy organizations, and they've all been talking about sort of this policy now, not even a stated policy, but the algorithm is downranking so-called political content. Have you been seeing that affect your engagement rate, and like how are you sort of handling the political climate right now where things are being downranked if they're being marked political? And by the way, everything is being marked political.
Right.
Really anything, but I would imagine the work that you do in social justice especially is being marked.
Yeah. I mean, we are talking about policy all the time.
Right.
Our leaders are advocating, in their local communities for various policies, criminal justice reform specifically, voting rights, and I think we haven't necessarily noticed a huge drop in engagement necessarily, but that I've making people aware, and particularly I've seen it on Instagram where that setting is just sort of automatically getting switched on for people, even if they've gone in and manually switched it off. Meta's sort of like switched it back on for folks, so they have to kind
tell
of
us about the setting for people that don't know.
Yeah. So I can't walk you through it because I don't have it memorized. But basically, in your settings, in your profile, there's a place for moderating what they consider "quote unquote" political content, and that's being switched on for people, meaning they're actually being served fewer and fewer posts that are flagged as political content. So unless you go in and manually switch that off, there are posts that Meta has decided are political that you're just not seeing. And so you have to go in and sort of manually make that adjustment yourself. And apparently check it regularly because for whatever reason, it's getting switched back on for a lot of people, even if they've manually switched it off.
That's really bothers me. I think that we should be able to see content from the people that we want to see content from.
I
But
agree.
I understand, like I see their perspective where things are very polarizing, and they don't I don't know, they feel like the user experience is being downgraded by seeing political content, but you can change it. So I just looked it up in the help settings. You can just Google it. But the political content control, if you go to your profile, content preferences, political content, you can select your control setting. And it's supposed to be limiting, quote unquote political content. They don't really let us know what that means. And they don't really, they're not very specific about it.
Mm.
But just, I
They're
do
not.
think, yeah, they're very vague about it. So
Yeah.
I think that for all of us, if that's something you want, you can actually limit it. So you need to be more in control of your algorithm. But
Yeah.
I've been really concerned about that, especially for agencies and nonprofits working on issues of, social justice and things like that.
Yeah.
But do you use social media advertising at all? Do you advertise on any of these platforms? And if
Yeah.
you do you find it to be effective? Like, how do you use it?
Yeah, we do. So we've primarily been doing social media advertising through Meta on Facebook and Instagram primarily, and we've begun doing some through LinkedIn. We have a pretty sizable audience on LinkedIn, and so
Mhm.
we've begun experimenting with that as well. It's hit or miss. You got to experiment, see what works, what doesn't, and keep trying different things. But we have, we've set a monthly budget. I think you just have to kind of plan for those things, and we have regular content and things that we want to be promoting. Including our monthly giving campaigns and things like that. So it's just another tool at our disposal, and yeah, something to budget for, and definitely something to take advantage of, because to the point of we were just talking about, the algorithm doesn't necessarily isn't just going to show your stuff to everybody. You have to kind of pay to play, and particularly if you're trying to reach new audiences, new donors, get new people interested in the work that you're doing. You kind of have to do some paid advertising to accomplish that these days.
So you are mostly using LinkedIn for your paid advertising, or are you advertising across all the other ones as well?
It's primarily been Facebook and Instagram, and we've just started doing some LinkedIn as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this: we made the conscious decision. We had been advertising on Twitter, X, and just for specific reasons, we decided not to do that. Based
Don't
on
give Elon Musk any more money. It's just my opinion.
yeah, I think that's right.
That's where that's right. Yes, that's
Yeah.
what you decided.
Yes.
How do you decide which platform to prioritize? Do you look at metrics? Do you look at engagement, or do you use each platform to target a different audience or for different things?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, it's looking at seeing where our audience is and where they're the most engaged. And so, we do see some engagement on Twitter, X. Still, there's still some signs of life there. But we're seeing Threads is coming up. But primarily for us, it's been actually Instagram and TikTok where we've seen most of the engagement. And so, yeah, those are the places where we're beginning to invest more and do more.
There was a question. I mean, you don't have to share this information, but what is do you want to share your monthly social ad budget? I'm not sure if you want to, but if you do.
I mean, we're not a huge organization, so it's not a huge budget allocated for that. I mean, I think, again, every organization just sort of has to look at, in the grand scheme of things, what makes sense for us. So, we're not spending thousands of dollars a month on this. You can actually accomplish a lot, even with a small budget. So, without giving out any specifics, I'll just say that.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's good. I think people feel like the only way to accomplish anything is to be spending thousands of dollars. But I've even worked with a group that spent $50 on a Facebook ad to promote their golf tournament. And they got, sort of a 500% return on investment because they had golf tournament signups. So I think it really depends on what you're trying to do, the content you're trying to promote, and who you're trying to reach, and how often you're running the ad. I do know that LinkedIn is giving great discounts, and they have all sorts of fantastic features and wonderful programs for nonprofits. I know Meta does not offer any kind of discounts in any way to nonprofits, and I know that Google Ad Grants. Oh, do you use Google Ad Grants
We
as
do.
well? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's free money on the table there.
Yeah.
Take advantage of that. We absolutely do. Yeah. And we found, LinkedIn has been really, really had a lot of support for helping us get started. They're really doing a lot.
I
in that.
know. And I've been saying this when I talk with my clients. I really feel like LinkedIn is kind of doubling down on their social impact team, whereas many of the other platforms are firing their entire teams or downgrading their entire social impact team or their teams that work with nonprofits. And LinkedIn is almost like kind of tripling their team. So something to think about. Of course, all depends on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. How is your organization using social media for fundraising? And like our topic at Bridge is converting fans to donors,
Mhm.
but obviously that we know we need to play the long game here. But how do you use it for fundraising?
So, we've, you know, focused on kind of tying into certain events. That's been one of our strategies. So Black History Month, February, highlighting our Black leaders who have, powerful stories and are doing amazing work. April is Second Chance Month. So highlighting all of the work around criminal justice reform and second chances and third chances and fourth chances for the 70 plus million Americans who have direct experience with the criminal legal system in our country. October is when we have our fundraising gala, which is an in-person event in New York City. Obviously celebrating our 10th anniversary this year is going to be big. But we're promoting sponsorships. We're selling tickets to that. And then, of course, we've done Giving Tuesday, although that feels very oversaturated at this point. And then end of year giving. So kind of, consistently throughout the year having tied in campaigns that we're promoting through social media to bring people in.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you new to TikTok? What is your newest platform? Is that the newest one?
I would say it's definitely the newest one where we're really investing, and in terms of posting content, we've one of our strategies, whenever there's a new social media platform, we sort of try to establish an outpost,
Right, just at least get the handle.
just to get the handle. It's ours in case one of these other platforms takes off. Obviously, when Twitter was that was the question, what's going to be the new Twitter? And Threads is sort of coming up now, it seems, just anecdotally. But yeah, so yeah, establishing those outposts, and then I would say TikTok is probably the place. It's still possible. So, we've had some videos go. I would, for not having a lot of followers, we've had some videos still get tens of thousands of views, just take off. So, yeah.
What kind of content works best for you on TikTok?
So interestingly, again, we're an advocacy organization. So, it's a combination of, it's usually our leaders, and it's usually a combination of interesting data and powerful storytelling. So, that particular video that got the most views for us so far was one of our leaders speaking at a conference. So it's just a clip of a video from her speaking there. basically saying that by the year 2030, 1 in 2 Americans, adult age Americans, will have some kind of arrest or conviction record. That's,
Wow.
yeah, which is a startling statistic for people. And so that, I think that was part of what, um, caused that video to take off, because people were kind of blown away by that.
That is such a good point, because people always ask me, what kind of content, what should we be sharing? What's going to take off? What's going to be interesting? And it's usually maybe not what we think, because we have that curse of knowledge. So we understand these statistics, and we're so deeply invested in the cause. We look at these research reports every day, but thinking about what is the average lay person on just scrolling TikTok, what's going to grab their attention, what's going to make them think, what's going to really pique their curiosity, their interest. And the other thing that's so important about it is being very relevant and timely. And, for a lot of us, like we don't necessarily have causes that are in the news every single day. But we are working on things that are incredibly important. Maybe it's just to our local community. Maybe it's not a national issue, but it's important to our region or to our community. But I think what's so important, Stephen, what you said, to me, there's a myth amongst nonprofits that the only way you can get traction on social media is if you have children or if you have cats and dogs. And you're working for an advocacy organization. You have fantastic stories to share, but it's not like you can say this person came to the food bank and we helped them. You have to get a little bit more creative.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, because we're not a direct service organization, and maybe there's people watching, and that's what you do, and that's great. You have those kinds of stories and statistics that you can share. It's a little bit more nuanced in talking about the kind of work that we do, and that's why we focus on our leaders and the work that they're doing. Because some of our leaders are elected officials, and some of them have written books. We had a leader who had a BET film made about her story. So yeah, it's amplifying all of those stories. Obviously, personal, powerful storytelling is always a strong hook. But then, yeah, I'll be honest. Like you said, I was a little surprised that particular video took off, because being in this work on a day-to-day basis, I hear these statistics and I'm familiar with them, but a lot of people are not. So there is an educational component. There's a trying to raise awareness that is super important.
Mm-hmm. How do you what am I trying to say? Contextualize this huge issue that you're working on. Like, if you just go to your website, you see the statistics, you see it's almost like dealing with poverty or homelessness or racial justice. Like, it's a huge issue.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand. And I'm not speaking for myself, but I'm maybe being a little stereotypical about the general public, but maybe not the most sympathetic group to be advocating for. And I hate to say that, but I've done work with like invisible people, with Mark Horvath, and I've worked in domestic violence, and I've worked in rape crisis. And it's, how do you dispel myths and misconceptions around the issue and around the population that you are aiming to, sort of amplify and lift up?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely, obviously, one of the biggest challenges, particularly that we have in communications, because we know that these folks have our leaders. They have the solutions. One of our founding mottos was, those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from resources and power. We also say our experience is our expertise, and that we want our leaders to be viewed as the experts in these fields. Criminal justice reform is sort of a catch basin for all the failures of all these other systems. So when you talk about homelessness and poverty and racial justice and healthcare, like it touches all of it, right?
Mhm.
So we have to begin by trying to just humanize the folks that we work with so that people recognize their basic humanity first. And then we hope that they view them as the leaders that they truly are and the expertise that they truly bring. But yeah, I mean, there's I've seen a video can go viral on TikTok, and a lot of the comments will be, very negative, very dehumanizing. Don't you can't do the time, don't do the crime, and this sort of rhetoric, right? And so that absolutely is one of those big things that we are working on and trying to shift the narrative on how people think about. I mean, we're talking about 70 plus million people in this country, going up to 100 million people in this country by 2030 is projected. So it may not be you, but it's probably somebody or somebody in your family who has some direct experience with criminal justice system.
Mhm. Humanizing the issue and contextualizing it. I love that. So Bethany asked a question. Have you run A/B tests on social media?
We have, particularly with Facebook ads. We've done some A/B testing with again different both graphics and messaging to see what works best. Particularly, one of the tests that we did was with our Leading with Conviction program, the year-long cohort. People have
Leading with Conviction. That's a great name.
it
That's a
is
really,
it
really
is
great name.
TM trademark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great program, and folks have to be nominated by someone who knows them and recognizes them as a leader in the community already. So, again, that's something that we cast a broad net nationally to get nominations, and so we've done some A/B testing with some different messaging and some different imagery to go with those ads, particularly on Facebook, and gotten some good results from doing that. I think A/B testing we've done more probably with email and different subject lines and things like that. We definitely can do more, and I think it comes down to, again, a question of capacity and how much you can do. If you're working with a small team like we are, or if it's just you, if you're a team of one person, there's only so much you can do. But A/B testing is something that absolutely is worth doing to help hone in on what really works and what really speaks to your audience. So
I love that. And it's also really will help you, like you said, with a limited bandwidth, limited budget. Well, we're gonna wrap up here, but I'm so thankful, Stephen, that we connected. I would love to
yeah,
know. I mean, I would love for everyone to visit us in DC, visit us at Bridge, come to our session. It's going to be really fantastic. I think it's going to be a really great session. But I would love your sort of what is your number one piece of advice for a fundraiser, for a nonprofit professional trying to get that win on social media, like trying to get some success? Like, what's your number one piece of advice?
oof,
I know that's tough. I don't know what my number one piece of advice would be.
yeah. I get, I'll just say storytelling and
Yeah.
the power of stories, because no matter what kind of work your organization does, there are success stories. There's powerful personal stories. There's stories that illustrate the needs and the urgency of the work that you're doing. So focus on telling good stories on social media and amplifying the voices of directly impacted people. That's
Yes.
it.
I love that. Thank you so much. All right. Well, join us. I'm going to put all the links that I had mentioned on LinkedIn. I'll go back in and just add in the links to Just Leadership USA, to Bridge. Obviously connect with both of us on LinkedIn. But yeah, if you're going to Bridge, if you're going to be in DC, if you're going to be at any other conference, let us know, and and we could try to get a coffee and shed some more insight. But Stephen, thank you so much for your willingness, your generosity, and just your passion and the work that you do.
Thank you, Julia. I'm really looking forward to next week, and thanks to everybody who joined us today.
Yay. All right. Thanks, everyone.